our detox challenge. Today we're going to be starting off with a little bit of an instructional yoga video, taking time just to go through a couple of inversions, which we haven't done so far, but they are amazing for detox, they are amazing for hormonal balance and stress relief, so really important. But because they involve kind of putting a lot of pressure on the head and the cervical spine and the shoulders, we really need to make sure that we take the time to learn them correctly. So I'm just going to have you sat in a nice comfortable position with the spine long. Just allow the shoulders to relax. Close your eyes. And here I just want you to feel if there's any tension in the neck or the shoulders. And just see if you can begin to allow that tension to dissolve. So as you inhale, you might find some more length through the spine and a lift of the skin of the frontal body up towards the shoulders. On your exhalation, feel the connection between your neck and shoulders soften as the skin of the back body releases towards the floor. Inhaling, skin of the front body up towards the shoulders, lengthen the spine. Exhale, and let the shoulders melt as the skin of the back body releases down towards the floor. Couple more breaths like that. And then draw your palms together at the center of your chest. Take a deep breath in. And on your exhalation, begin to flutter your eyes open. Release your hands down onto your knees. Great. Okay, I want you to take your hands out in front of you and begin to circle your wrists. So about 5 times in each direction. Good. And then at the elbows, circle. Change direction. Good. We're going to circle the shoulders out. You're just mobilizing these joints a little bit. We want to do it in the most efficient amount of time and then change direction. Beautiful. Take a deep breath in to lengthen the spine. On your exhalation, take your chin to your chest. We're going to roll the head around so that the right ear comes over the right shoulder. And then back to center. Left ear over the left shoulder. Good. And then close your eyes and do that really slowly, a couple more times to each side. Notice if there are any areas that feel particularly sore for you, and if there is, pause that out and take a couple of breaths and really set this intention to release some of that intention, really set the intention to release some of that tension away with your exhale breath. And then you might find if you move away and then you revisit that something has changed. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Just keep the awareness of your breath shining in the right places where you need them most. Great. Okay, bring the head back to center and just kind of move it around in any way that feels good for you. Shoulders too. Good, and then shake out the hands. Alright. Okay, so the first pose that we're going to do, which is traditionally practiced before shoulder stand, which we're going to do after, is headstand. So that might sound a little bit scary to some of you if you're not used to doing it, but we're going to take it step by step and everyone's going to just take it to the point that they feel comfortable with. So I've actually got about 3 blankets here that we're going to use more for shoulder stand. So I'm just going to move them off to the side. But you may want one of those blankets to put your head on. So if I was to use a blanket, so you can really see kind of by putting the top of the head on the floor, depending on how hard your floor is and how thick your mat is, if that feels really tender, then you can take one of these blankets and just put the blanket onto the mat. And then what I like to do is just fold the mat over. So now I've got two pieces of mat, so I've got a really nice cushioned, you'd want it to be just cushioned enough so that it's not uncomfortable on the top of your head, but if it's really cushioned, you'll find that it's hard to balance if your legs are coming off the floor, which they may or may not do today. Right. Okay, so for this, we're going to all practice just standing up for now. So I want you to bring your forearms down to the floor and then clasp your hands around your opposite elbows. So the reason I don't want to do this just on the blanket is that the elbows will slide really easily. So I do want you to be on your mat, whether it's just your mat or whether your mat's folded in half. You're going to clasp your hands around your opposite elbows, and that way you know that they're the right distance apart. And then you're going to interlace your fingers. So as I interlace my fingers, I'm going to interlace them all the way down to the webbing. So the most important thing here is that the wrist bones stay one on top of the other. So as you bring your head onto the floor, we don't allow that to happen. And the back of my head is going to rest just against the fleshy part here, but the fingers are creating a little bit of a cave away from my head. So once again, putting the elbows down, clasping the hands around the opposite elbows, and then interlacing the fingers, one wrist bone on top of the other. Now I'm going to start to put the very top of my head onto the floor. So it's the very crown of the head. So sometimes if you feel around, it can feel like a little bump, or sometimes a little bit tender, or sometimes a little depression actually in there. And yeah, you should normally find it. It's not towards the back of your head, it's not towards your hairline, but almost halfway in between. Okay, so from here, as I place the head down, I'm going to walk the knees back just a little bit. And then I'm going to practice lifting the head off the floor and then back down. So I'm going to press down into my outer wrist, forearms and elbows, and lift the head away from the floor. Then leaving the head on the floor, I want to do the same thing with the shoulders. So really lifting the shoulders away from the ears and creating space and length for the neck. Do that a couple of times. So you can literally stay with that, and you can almost roll around just a little bit on the top of the head, because that's really good for you. Okay, if you feel like you want to go a little bit further, we'll recheck all of these places and then tuck your toes and lift your knees away from the floor, just like down dog, but with your feet a little bit closer. So it's the same thing here. Can I lift my head away from the floor? A couple of times. And then can I push the shoulders away from the ears? A couple of times. Right, you might want to take a rest and do that one again. Or you might want to then stretch your right foot to the ceiling. Squeeze your inner thighs as you do that. Come back to this action of lifting the head away from the floor. Drop the foot down. Lift, lift, drop the foot down. Rest on the knees. Always rest for a couple of breaths in child's pose before you come up, just to allow the blood pressure to regulate itself. So in doing that, if we want to bring the feet up away from the floor, obviously then there's a whole load of pressure going down onto the head, into the cervical spine. And so we don't want that to really happen, right? Because our cervical spine is really precious to us, as are all our different parts of our body, but that in particular. And so we always want to have this feeling, even if the head is touching the floor, that we can actually almost press up away from the floor, so that we can take a lot of the weight off the head. So actually, instead of headstand, this should probably be called forearm stand. Okay, so you can absolutely do this with a wall in front of you, and that is what I would recommend if you're beginning to feel like you want to take the feet away from the floor. So you can pretend that I've got a wall there. So you definitely want your forearms and your elbows to be on the same height. So whatever you've got, blankets and mat wise, definitely on the same height. So we'll go back to wrapping the elbows, interlacing the fingers, putting the crown of the head on the floor, lift, lift, press the shoulders away, lift the knees, lift, lift the head, press the shoulders away. And now, if you want to go further, you can begin to walk your feet in a little bit, and you can bend your knees, right? This is not about stretching into the hamstrings. And so from there, you're going to have the wall behind you here. From there, I'm going to squeeze my belly, and you can use a Mula Bandha breath there. Lift one foot and then the other, and you can find the wall with your feet. From there, slide the feet up the wall. Good. You probably want your sit bones to be close to the wall as well. And then you have to press up through your heels, squeeze your inner thighs together, and again, try to find the tuck of the tailbone and the lifting of the front of the pelvis. To come down, you'll bend your knees, slide your feet down the wall. Step one foot and then the other back to the floor, and rest there for a couple of breaths in child's pose. So of course you can do that. Coming up and away from the wall. What you want to avoid is doing these big, massive kicks that can really throw you off balance, right? We want to really protect this area. So, so that little hop, right? These little hops that aren't going very far, right? Drawing the knee in, lifting off, and squeezing into the belly is a really good place to start, right? And if you've got the wall behind you, then you know that you can't tip over. The good thing about kind of practicing without the wall from the get-go is that you're never actually afraid once you come away from the wall, because you've never known the safety of the wall, but that's up to you and up to what feels comfortable in your body. Okay, from there, I'm just going to have you interlace your hands at the back of your skull, draw your elbows in a little bit, press your skull into your hands, and then pull your hands into the back of your skull. You should feel the neck lengthen a little bit there. See if you can drop the shoulders down to create more length. Good. That just helps to reset anything that's kind of gone a little bit off in that pose. And then release, just roll the shoulders out. Okay, so traditionally that pose is followed by shoulder stands. So these can be done individually, obviously too. So for this, I'm going to open up my mat and I'm going to have my 3 blankets. So you want 3 blankets or towels of about the same size, and I want you to place the folded edges of the blanket, so the ones that are actually folded where it's nice and regular, onto your mat, the very edge of your mat. And then I'm going to have you fold your mat almost all the way over the blankets. So there, you'll have a little bit of a gap here, because if you put your mat here and you've got, well, even short hair but longer hair than me, you're going to sort of pull your hair and it's not going to feel comfortable. Okay? So this, some people don't use this setup, but having even just like an inch of height away from the floor really helps to create space for the cervical spine. So really important for everybody that doesn't want to get neck problems, but particularly if you have neck or shoulder tension, really, really important. So I'm going to lie down with my shoulders on these blankets, but the back of my head on the floor. So shoulders up on the blankets, back of the head onto the floor, and then you're going to just bring your elbows down. Press into your elbows and lift your chest a little bit and kind of get comfortable there. Then I'm going to bring the fingertips down onto the floor. take a deep breath in, and on your exhalation, draw your knees in towards your forehead and come on up. So if this is really difficult for you, you can place a block or a stack of blankets or whatever underneath your hips here, so that it's almost like you've got a little bit of a helping hand, a launch pad if you like, to bring your knees over. So once again, inhale there. On your exhalation, knees in towards your forehead. Okay, so a couple of options here. You can drop your feet to the floor if that feels comfortable for you. If that starts to really tweak out your neck and your back, don't bring them down. You can simply bring your hands onto your back here. If you can touch the floor, then you'll bring your elbows a little bit closer together and you'll bring your hands lower on your back. So your aim is to get your hands as low on your back towards your shoulder blades as possible. I'd like you to keep your thumbs in, so you're just supporting the back with cupped hands. If you're away from the floor, it's just a little bit more difficult to get the elbows in, right? So if you're there and you can't bring your feet onto the floor, it might be really cool to have a wall here this time so that you can walk your feet up the wall, but I'll show you that another time. Okay, from there, we're going to begin to press the knees towards the ceiling. See if you can crawl your hands down your back and scoop the flesh of your back up, and then begin to press the feet to the ceiling. So probably initially will be a little bit like that. We'll try to take the weight of the body into the hands. But in order to grow into the pose, you need to begin to lift up, bring the hips towards your head, walk your hands down your back. See if you can get your elbows as close as possible, and then you'll be able to find more of a straight line. So if I'm kind of collapsed here, you can hear how my voice gets really funny, but if I press into the back of my head, I can actually keep the center of the throat open. And then you probably want to have the feet like a plate and be pressing the feet up towards the ceiling. So try to keep those thumbs in a little bit so you cup the hands onto the back. And you can stay here just for a few breaths, or you can stay here for a few minutes to see how it feels. So you come down. When you're ready, you're going to draw your knees in towards your forehead. You can step the feet behind you if that's available to you. And then bring your palms down to the floor wherever you are and begin to slowly roll down. As you land your feet, land them wide and draw your knees together. So there'll be a huge temptation to take the knees out to the other side or to straighten the legs, but don't do that. Okay, we want to create a little bit of space in the lower back so that it can relax, so that those muscles don't freak out. And then from there, just going to wriggle backwards without coming up, so that your hips are on your mat and your blanket, but your shoulders are on the floor again. Feet wide, knees together. Just press one hand onto your belly, one hand onto the center of your chest. We're just going to stay there and breathe. See if you can feel your breath as it expands into the chest and then gently expands all the way down to the belly. And as you exhale, releasing the belly, releasing the chest. And just for the next minute or so, continue to breathe into the hands. Allowing everything to settle, calm. Begin to draw your knees into your chest. Stretch your arms out to the side. We're just going to gently begin to take the knees from left to right, right to left. Just feeling that on your lower back, no need to go all the way to the floor. And then from there, rolling all the way over onto one side. Begin to press the floor away from you as you come up. And then grow the spine tall, balance the head right on top of the spine. Inhale, shoulders to the ears. Exhale, let them melt down. Through your palms together at the center of your chest. You're going to rub your palms together briskly until you feel a really nice amount of heat being generated with the palms. And then I want you to just bow your head forwards and rest your hands between your neck and shoulders. Take a few deep breaths. And then one more time, raise the head, rub the palms together, nice amount of heat. This time you're just going to cup your hands over your eyes, deep breath in. Exhale, let out a sigh, another deep breath in. Exhale and sigh. Palms together at your heart. Take a deep breath in, honor the length of the spine. On your exhalation, bow to your heart. Namaste. Well done, everybody. So that was the kind of introduction to how to set up for headstand, shoulder stand. So you want to stay with what feels comfortable for you and be really aware of, any kind of uncomfortable sensations on the neck, because if you feel any of that, then that's not a good place to be and you need to come out of it straight away. But these poses are really worth taking the time in to try to fit into your everyday practice, because they are so amazing for you in loads and loads of different ways. Headstand, great for detoxing when everything is turned upside down, and great for hormonal balance and to increase blood flow to the brain and just make you feel more energized and in a better mood. And shoulder stand, once again, really amazing for hormonal balance, for all of the different systems in the body, but really very restorative. So initially it might feel like it's a lot of work, but actually when you get into it, sometimes it can feel like a really nice deep sleep. And actually they say that 1 minute in shoulder stand is like 7 minutes of deep sleep. Super awesome for things like jet lag, to insomnia. So really, really well worth it. So take care, yogis. Namaste.